Hey guys, we're back with another install video for you. What we're going to be working on today is a rear disc brake conversion on our FC150 project that we're building. If you've ever considered doing a disc brake upgrade on a flat fender, an older CJ5, any of the FCs, there are some disc brake kits out there. We sourced ours from Kaiser Willys, and we're going to run you through the process of what it takes to install this thing. We've had a couple things that we've noticed that we will show you in the video that we ran into, problems, fixes that we had with the build that we are doing. So we'll show you the good, the bad, the indifferent, but how many times have you gotten something that you're not familiar with or you're trying to install and you come to find that they have one-page installation instructions? Now that's fine if you've done a job 100 times and you don't need the instructions, but for those that haven't, we've all run into it and you're not exactly sure how the components go together. Sometimes there's not videos out there that actually show you the detail of the model that you're working on, which is why we wanted to do this. So we're going to show you how these components go together. Again, some of the things that we ran into, the hurdles that we had to cross to make the components that we've chosen, like the wheels, tires, so on and so forth, to put this all together. It's not too bad of a process on the rear. The front is a little more detailed, but this is just going to address the rear with a Dana 44. So we'll show you what we did, how it goes together. Hopefully it'll help you out if you decide you want to do a disc brake upgrade. Two bolts in place. These are holding the shims as well as this bearing retainer plate in place. You want to make sure that you have your axle in place set before you start installing the disc brake conversion. The first component that's going to go into place is this bracket that holds the caliper. You'll see they're marked left and right, left for the driver, right for the passenger. They are going to be positioned facing rearward, so this will sit in about a 2 o'clock position, and this offset is going to be outboard, so it's going to be facing away from the vehicle to be positioned correctly. We'll go ahead and just pull these out. Might be a little tricky, kind of holding everything in place while you're trying to get the first bolt or two in, but once you get those set, they're not too bad. Now the kit comes with 6 bolts. 5 of them are all the same length. You'll see they're typically this grade 8 or gold in color. For some reason they sent 2 silver ones. One of the silver is the same length as the rest. One of them is shorter than the others. This shorter one is to be placed in this spot where this caliper mount is not solid all the way around the back. With those in place, the next to be installed are going to be these half-moon spacers. What these spacers do is they replace the original backing plate that held the drum brakes. You're going to see that there's an additional hole. This axle flange at the bottom also has an additional hole. No matter how we position these things, what combination we use, this hole in this spacer does not properly line up. It's going to be about halfway or a crescent moon, so that's what we're going to put this on position wise for now. Next we've got a gasket. Not sure if you can see or not, but it does kind of show what I was just describing of how everything lines up with this hole in the bottom, with the exception of this spacer. Why it is cut that way, I'm not quite sure. But all 4 spacers for both sides are cut the same, so no matter what combination I tried, they all lined up the same. All right, so with that gasket in place, next we've got the grease retainer, sometimes called a grease shield or seal. So I'm going to put that on here. And if you're just doing a conversion or you're doing a full build, if you've got this much stuff apart, smart idea to swap that as well as this axle key here. Both of which I'm replacing on this. So next, this gasket will go into place, followed by this grease shield protector, sometimes a cap. Now this hole in the bottom, everything lines up where this would also line up with that, oriented with the bolts. Why that spacer is actually cut like that, I'm uncertain. So we'll get that all put together. I now have these 6 nylock nuts tightened down on the bolts. Before I did that, I went ahead and took these 3 bottom bolts out while everything was still loose, and I dropped this lower half moon spacer. But before doing so, I marked on there where this drain tube or hole is that I had mentioned earlier, so I could pull that out, and with a burr bit I just elongated that hole so it actually opened this drain hole, so this cap here, everything would line up and leave a good opening for drainage as designed. Something that I wanted to point out, what they don't consider is the length of the stud when using aftermarket wheels. So I pressed the studs into the replacement hub, and I've got some pictures that I will include, but you can see that it is well bottomed out within about 3 threads. So I'm gonna have to take all of this apart, put some longer studs in there to actually hold the wheel on, because what they send in the kit is way too short to fit with aftermarket wheels. The hub greased, and I'm just going to go ahead and line this thing up. Since I've got it greased to help it get on there and pass that grease retainer and seal, just kind of want to help it stay lubed up as it's going on and in. I'll put this axle key into place. Now that I've got this on here, as I mentioned earlier, these studs being too short, what I'll do is just knock these out. I'll put the new longer wheel studs in. I did pick those up at a local Napa. They're about 5/8 inch longer than these, and they worked out perfect for the aluminum 15-inch wheels that I'm using. So that's a part number of 641-4260. So maybe that'll help you out. Okay, the hub is in, washer, axle nut is tightened down. Something that I like to do that helps me is I'll take a marker and I will mark on the end of this axle, so that way I know where the hole is for the cotter pin in this axle nut. So as you can see, I was able to get it lined up nicely, so I'll just take the cotter pin, get that put in there. As you can see, we have the old studs that were too short out. Now it's time to put the new ones in. I initially used the press to put the first ones in just because it was quicker and easier, but if you don't have a press or need to install them this way, this works as well. Our 5 new wheel studs are in place. The next step will be to put the brake rotor on. And that wheel will hold it in place. And once we get the caliper on here, it will line things up as well. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and put a couple lug nuts on here to keep this straight and aligned while I put that brake caliper on. And now, of course, the fun part. I went ahead and put this on so you guys wouldn't have to sit there and watch me struggle with dropping parts and pieces. And again, to save some time and condense some of the video. Alright, now that these are tightened down, I will take these off, put the cotter pin in, center cap and the wheel on. That'll hold everything in place. And then, since there's still obviously a lot to do on this build, once we get the brake lines run, we'll put the banjo bolt on there and tie in the brake lines. But for now, this will allow us to get wheels and tires mounted on this thing so we can get it set down on the ground and start working on some other things. There's something that I wanted to test. It went a little further than I wanted to. But I wanted to make sure there was clearance on the back of that wheel. They say that the disc brake conversion will not fit with factory wheels. So I wanted to see how tight the clearance was. Of course, I had to put the wheel on to find out. Alright, back to addressing the caliper issue. I did do a minimal amount of grinding, just kind of took those sharp unlevel edges off of there. But as you can see, it spins freely now, so very mild and simple modification. Just kind of leveled and cleaned that up. Alright, that's it. We've got the back end components bolted together, wheels and tires mounted, sitting on the ground. We're ready to move to the front and do the disc brake conversion for that so we can get this thing fully sitting on the ground for a rolling frame. Hope you found this video helpful. Like, subscribe, follow our channel. We'll have some more instructional how-to kind of stuff as we progress on this build. So again, thanks for following along. Thanks to Kaiser Willys, great kits that they put forth. We just wanted to show you what we ran into, the little things that weren't necessarily spelled out or clarified in the instructions, but we wanted to help make it a little bit easier for you that haven't done a lot of brake jobs or installs like this before. So again, we hope you found it helpful. Thanks for following along and watching.